Hi guys, back again to talk about old Sykesy. Um, Yesterday we spoke about how I became an author with the first book, Sykes Unfinished Agony. So just turn this around a bit. So now I'm going to discuss the reasoning behind that. This is Paul. I have never wasted a day whilst I've been in the nick. I have a life-saving awards, a city and guilds in Brick Lane, 22 O-levels, 8 A-levels and a degree. I also have 40 convictions and that's all that counts. That was Paul Sykes in 1989, possibly, it was the back end of 89. This book, the highly anticipated follow-up to his literacy debut, Unfinished Agony, Further Agony sees author Jamie Boyle delve deeper into the life and times of Lupus's most notorious troublemaker, Paul Sykes. Infamous for his dealings with the law, Sykes, a one-time British and Commonwealth heavyweight boxing contender, was loved, loathed and feared by many, establishing a reputation for violence and mischief, and continues to be talked about over 10 years after ultimately his death at the age of 60. Packed with untold stories from those that knew and encountered him, Further Agony is a fascinating glimpse into the life of one of Wakefield's most controversial characters. I mean, that said, one of... Listen, I'm not from Wakefield, but I've spoke to a lot of people who have, several members of the local constabulary, and the feedback I get is nobody come close to that guy. Yes, you had your Paul Burks, you had your Colin Beaumonts, there's a few others, Chris Campbell's told me, but I don't think none really, certainly in the police's eyes, come close to Paul Sykes. And you know something? Listen, I'm an author of all the books, so I've got no reason to lie. Listen, I get the same percentage from them all. But you know what? If you want the truth, if you want the most accurate feel to what Paul Sykes really was, it's in there. And I'll tell you why. Obviously, the first book there was a lot of people, kind of names, your Eddie Richardsons, your Charles Bronsons, your Johnny Nelsons, your Glenn McCrory's, and listen, they all knew him, they all encountered him at some time or another in their life. But in this book, you know, I mean, Chris Lambrianou lived next door to him for 3 years in Hull Prison. You know, obviously your David Dunfords, your Ronnie Trelfall was too ill at the time. I did get bits from him, but I mainly spoke to his wife, Josie. So their input, and obviously Delroy Showers. You've got former opponents in here like Tom Keeley, boxing writer Colin Hart, Alan Lord, who was the ringleader of the Strangeways riots. Obviously, he spent a lifetime in prison, so he came across Sykesy. Clyde Broughton, Mark Sellers, which was Mick Sellers' son, the lovely Janet Sellers, very, very brave. I know the interview she gave took a lot out. I wasn't there, but, you know, I think she opened part of her life that she'd, you know, I think I was told she became very emotional, you know, because she was speaking about something that she'd basically buried for a long, long time, and there weren't very pleasant memories. Also, you've got, you know, Wakefield bouncers, yeah, and just lots of people from the Lupset estate. Even Paul's solicitor makes an appearance. An anonymous Wakefield police officer, and a couple of people who were very close to Paul, who even looked after him in his later years. And there's maybe 2 or 3 who put, you know, the stories were fantastic, but they weren't comfortable. you know, given their side without maybe a bit of feedback. So we used kind of slightly, what's the correct term? Is it pseudonym names or something like that? But yeah, I mean, that out of, you know, there's the Sweet Agony, there's the Unfinished Agony, It's Sharks, Final Agony. But that for me, I think that really, really is the most accurate account of the Lout from Lupsit. Yeah, you know, it's a lot of people asking about the film, and what the film is going to be is basically it's going to start off from 1989. But I know the script writers Vaughan Civil and Leo Bill have took Sweet Agony, Unfinished, Further, and Final. So them 4 books are merged together, and the script's going to become from that. Yeah, there's a lot of things I can't really speak about with the film. You know, I'm 99.9 sure I know who's going to play him because he's already been asked. It's all, you know, listen, it's none of my business. It's Western Edge Pictures will release it in their own time. All I will say is he's an absolute spitting double. I don't think they could have got. It's a bit like my friend Paul Venice. He's going to play the part of Lee Duffy in the Sayers film. And, you know, you've literally got a guy from South Bank who was an ex-fighter who's the absolute ringer. And although this guy, you know, he's not a fighter or an alcoholic like Sykes was, he's a professional actor. But he's even told me, you know, when I spoke to him, was it last year or the year before? He was literally doing 14-hour days in Panto, and he's been in big things in television, and he's a bit of a heartthrob. He's quite a handsome guy, so I'm told by the female. Yeah, I can see that. And he said to me, what he said to me was the biggest thing that jumps out for him with the whole story was the social justice of it all, about a man who went around life punching, knocking people out, walloping. You know, Paul lived by his own rules. Karma come on full set. The correct term he said to me, if I have to quote him, was the social justice. Yeah, he's really gripped by it, and he said he's going to read them again when he needs to play concentrated Sykesy. The exact words he used. You know, he's I think he's a southerner, but I do know he does often walk around talking in a West Yorkshire accent. So I think he's going to be absolutely phenomenal. He's even going to be the same age as more or less Paul. What was that documentary? 1990. So it was filmed when Paul was like 42, 43. Well, you've seen when the Lupsit Boys Club opened, that was on Paul's 44th birthday. But yeah, if I'm honest, guys, out the books, that one. And, you know, sadly, I was talking to War Cry Publishing this morning, and he said it was a bit like Lee Duffy, because Lee Duffy, The Whole of the Moon, went absolutely berserk. It had such a big build-up that if it would have fell, I probably would have never been taken seriously as an author again. But it was huge. It was absolutely staggering. It's sold in double figures in the thousands. By far my most successful one to date. And Unfinished Agony, obviously that was released on the 10th anniversary of Paul's death. To be honest, I made a mistake, which I've learned from, which I think, to be honest, it was just because I was so into Paul Sykes, so wrapped up, that I released that book exactly 6 months to the day from Unfinished Agony. Now, I've learnt my lessons, and, you know, I mean, I've did the Roy Shaw one, and I'm going to be doing a Roy Shaw 2, and I said to his son, I said, listen, I'm never going to release a book from the same, you know, listen, you can write a book on rock climbing and then write a book about snooker every week, but if you're writing a book about the same you know, same character, you've got to do it at least 1 year to the day, because it just doesn't get the it just doesn't get the awards that it deserves. And in my opinion, you know, there's some people in that book I never thought would have spoken to me. You know, and I think it's come across. It was very much him. It was him in prison. It was him on the Lupset estate. Paul was a very, very proud, patriotic Yorkshire man. A couple of screws used to say to me, he would always be horrible to like prison officers from like Scotland or Newcastle, but he would talk to like, you know, he'd say, "Yeah, lad, where are you from?" And if they were from, you know, Scunthorpe or Hull or Sheffield, he would give them, you know, like he just loved Yorkshire folk. And I read a bit on Paul in the Wakefield Express, which was December 1989, and he said he visualises himself as being a really fat old man, a really fat Yorkshire man with a great big beer belly, going in pubs, having Sunday lunches and drinking Yorkshire bitter. Yeah, you know, Delroy Showers has told me he used to sit in the cell, and he would educate him on the history of Yorkshire. I don't think Paul was a massive cricket fan, but he would sit in his cell listening to cricket, and I can only put that down to just you know, cricket's a very, very Yorkshire game. Rugby is an extremely Yorkshire game, to my knowledge. If it isn't, you know, you've only got to go to places like Pontefract and that, and it's probably their main number one sport. So Paul, he had a big passion for rugby when he used to. I think he even played for the Manor Club in the early 80s before he was arrested, and he done his stint in Strangeways for putting a contract out on a union official in 1981, 81, 82, I think it was. But yeah, it was, you know, and the book basically, yes, I did come across characters for the first book. Sorry, for the second book, I would have loved to have put in the first book. I tried to get, you know, I mean, bearing in mind, I didn't come across Delroy Showers until 2017. So I'd been aware of the story since 2012. So for 5 years, I'd kind of been sniffing him out, albeit for them 5 years, 4 of them he was in prison. I'd been told he'd changed his name, he didn't accept visitors. So it was very, very hard to get in contact with Delroy. And when I was given a number, I said, "Listen, try this." It was quite anonymous. It was, I don't know, listen, Delroy might have did it himself, I don't know. And when I rang him up and I told him who I was expecting him to just basically, I knew he was very eloquent and he's not your usual, as to quote Delroy, "I'm not your average darkie from Toxteth," but he's not your average career criminal. You know, I've met a few, I suppose. I've never socialised with any. But when you're talking about people who've literally made it to the top and became millionaires and drove the Bentleys, I struggle to find many who sit in the house playing chess and listen to classic Tchaikovsky and all this, and that's right, Delroy Showers, you know, you could probably put him in any part of the world. You could put him in Toxteth drinking White Lightning, and he'd divert back to his cheeky scouse, you know, kind of. But he tries to better himself in life, and his manners are impeccable. There's a lot of people I've picked up so much from him, and as I said in one of the other videos, that guy is an education to be in his company. It's just a shame that he's not ready for the public yet. I know I finished his sentence the other day. What was that? He said to me, I don't know what this means. He's finished his MAP 4, which is basically, I know up until certain stages, he wasn't allowed a certain amount of money in his pocket. He couldn't leave the country. You know, so he wasn't allowed to meet his brother Michael for, you know, because he was classed as well, he's been a Cat A prisoner. He was, you know, he's obviously. I mean, and even now, he's a guy that. I mean, Paul describes him in his book Sweet Agony that you only ever have to show him something once, and he becomes a genius at it. You show him how to play chess, and he's a professional the next day. He's very quick. He picks something up. You know, obviously he's never drank in his life. He's never smoked. He's very been switched on all his life. You know, so he's never lost the plot. He trains twice a day now. You know, and you'd think he's a man of many, many years old. And he said to me the other day, he said, you know, I'm 70 now, but I'm going on to 100. And I tell you what, he puts a lot of us to shame for the way he lives. Lives like a monk, literally. In bed at 9 o'clock, up at 5 o'clock, something like that. It's ridiculous. And he's one of them people, like, he's a bit like Sean Atwood. The correct term I was trying to think the other day, which word I couldn't explain, was, he always says it to me, I'm G-manic. I don't even know what it means. I'm presuming it means he makes the most of every second of every day. And you can, when you're in his company, you can understand why he became so successful at what he did, which was smuggling, and also a bit of skullduggery as well. Because, you know, I'm not going to bullshit you. Many people think, oh, he's only 5'5" and all that, but he was like a judo champion as well. Do you know? So the guy could have literally tied you in knots. And I've spoken to many people inside prison, Charles Bronson, you know, a lot of Clyde, and a lot of people who've served sentences with Delroy, and his name was it was always kind of greatly respected in them kind of circles, if you like. But yeah, guys, listen, if anyone out there now who are basically saying, who was that guy, Paul Sykes, or was that crazy guy punching sharks, you know, and I see him on Lads Mags, and I see him on all these Twitter and Instagram, but I don't quite understand who he is. Listen, read Sweet Agony, read Unfinished, read Further, and read Final. Don't forget It's Sharks as well by Rob Brenton. That's there's a lot of true stories in there which exactly came, you know, as it was. It's a short tales book, hence the reason why it's so cheap. But in my opinion, who studied this man greatly now for 8.5 years, you know, that book is basically, you know, if I had to say to Vaughan Civil, if I had to say to the actor who's going to play Paul, read that book. Out of them all, that's what he was about, you know. Lots of mannerisms in it. It's all in detail. Paul would often walk around the Lupset estate with his hands behind his back, gigantic hands, like that kind of. But he'd have a kind of Tennant's, Carlin Tennant's super strength. Yeah. So there's a lot of basically, you know. I did that book in 6 months, and I put my heart and soul into it. And I didn't just speak to anyone who, you know, I did meet people. I know Sykesy and all that, and I sat down with him. Don't forget, I probably went to Wakefield from, let me think, 2015 to 2017, probably 20 times, easy, absolutely easy, right? And I met a lot of people who were like, and when I sat down with them, I was like, well, right, and I actually knew more about them, and I'm from like 70 miles down the road, you know, and then I've met the people like Paul's next door neighbour. I said it in the video yesterday. He's been in the same house for like 55 years, and he literally lived next door to Paul Sykes for 38 years. And I sat talking to him, and he went, I don't really think I've got anything to tell you. And I was like, what? You know, like, if you haven't, then there's no one on this planet who hasn't. And obviously I did get a lot of stories on, he did tell me a lot of private things as well, so it would be unfair. But I certainly got the gist of what it was like living next door to the Sykes family. And yeah, it's tomorrow I'm going to do a chat on Sykes' final agony. What was the reason why? Because there was a big pause. Listen, there was a Sweet Agony out in 1990. There was Unfinished, which was 2017, 2018. Sorry, 2017, 2017. So there was nothing on Sykes 2018, 2019. And people were saying to me, oh, do another, and it was like, and to be honest, I don't want to sound really kind of cliche or kind of cheesy, but I probably owed it to Paul Sykes to every great story must have an ending. And yes, I'd done Unfinished, Further, and I thought about doing Final. I thought, no, and I thought, you know what? I know enough about him. And listen, I could have filled that book twice as big, right, on hearsay stories. Oh, yeah, Sykes, he bummed my nephew and he tried to, but I based Sykes' final agony on, I'm going to speak about it tomorrow, on facts. I didn't base it on hearsay. I spoke to members of the, one guy who was literally as high up in the police in West Yorkshire on the old Wood Street Nick. And when I was put in touch with him, I was like, you were surely not going to talk to me. And I was like, bloody hell, he is. And, that book, I can't remember off the top of my head, something like 200 pages. And I think something like maybe 180 a man. And there's 20 pages on that, the big cheese in Wakefield Police's, in their rankings, and I just had to put him in. It was just like, and that was an inside. That was like, listen, that's as good as you're going to ever get, because he was the guy who went and sent the mob in and sent and arrested him. He was the guy who dragged him down the corridors when he was getting spat and all that. And I'll save that for tomorrow, guys. But listen, thank you so much for following our channel, which is pretty new. I didn't really have the confidence to do this, obviously, because I've suffered... had a nose problem for many years, but I'm now on New Hemp, which I'm a proud ambassador for, and that stuff has basically changed my life. So if anyone wants a 20% discount on that, you can inbox me and inbox me on, catch me on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and then we can speak about it. But yeah, it's certainly got rid of most of my anxiety. But thank you so much for your kind comments. And yeah, I know I'm reading through them. I mean, it's not me, it's my publishers, but I do often have a look. And there is a lot of interaction, which, it's nice to, because I've had it, right, for years, where people are like, can you fucking shut up? You're weird, you. And, when I was just interested, and there's a lot of people really, really interested in him. I've never seen a documentary in my entire life as magnetic as that, because from the second I watched that in the summer of 2012, I was just like, what the fuck? I was like, wow, right, I need to, and yeah, if that makes me a weirdo or a bit of a obsession or whatever, then so be it. But I was, and the funny thing is I spoke to old Kenny. I haven't spoken to him for quite a while, but he's I'm going to have to get in touch with him, Kenny the Tailor from the Paul Sykes documentary. And he said to me something. He said he used to come to my shop all the time. And he said, you know something, Kenny? He said, when I'm gone one day, someone's going to come and write books on me. And he said that to a few people, so here's the books and here's the documentary. And someone very, very close to Paul said to me, I think it's in the next book as well. He said, you know something? He said, if Sykesy was here now, or if I ever found out that someone was writing books and making films about him, he'd be laughing his effing bollocks off. So, yeah, I'll leave it on that note, guys. And listen, don't forget, Sykes' Further Agony is available on Amazon, eBay, Waterstones. It's on Kindle. The price of this book, let me have a look. I don't even know. It's probably about £11-12. And yeah, and it's £4.95 via Kindle for any greedy fuckers out there who don't want to pay. It's the same book, you just don't get the pink the paper or the ink. But further Agony, one more round with Sykes by Jamie Boyle and Warcry Publishing. Guys, get out there and have a read because it's the most accurate out of them all. Thank you so much.